tourism, with the direction, the sort of the dynamic and vibrancy of the brand and the content that they are creating alongside your agency was very, very encouraging to see. And I think as we looked at it, organizations like South Walton can sometimes be a little bit more traditional and a little bit more conservative in what they're doing. We think this is a very different sort of look forward with Walton County. While there is some enormous strength to build off of, we think there's some real strategic opportunities here as it relates to the market and the position currently in the market of Walton County, and where the future and sort of what we would call the biggest opportunities for some increased impact lie. And that is really on an emphasis on email, continuing to follow segmentation, and then really leaning into the opportunity that is ahead of you with the website redesign. Let's just check and see if there's any questions so far on that initial sort of overall very high-level assessment.
Questions from the council? Seeing none, you're clear for takeoff.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So while email may sound very traditional, there are some reasons why we feel that this tool is really, really important in the evolution of the marketing program and strategy for Walton County. Dominance of repeat visitation. We feel that email is a very, very strong opportunity to reconnect and leverage that repeat visitation. And really, as primarily a drive market, that there is a disproportional benefit we feel will be gained from this sort of refocus and re-engagement with this email tool. There's been some recent very positive drip campaigns that have been deployed, but we're encouraging a really different tactic here, one that really leverages the entirety of the community and is, while dependent on and has a really strong leadership role for the organization called Walton County Tourism, we feel there's an opportunity to really engage at the entire destination level to really leverage a comprehensive marketing campaign that can be driven to that repeat visitor and really drive home some of the key concepts that have kept you relevant with that visitor, that initiated initial visitation with this segment, and really encouraging them to continue to come back and or come back if they have not chosen to come back recently. So while Walton County has done a really good job, Walton County Tourism, the organization, in keeping really strong lists and keeping lists up to date and current, we feel there's a way to really expand that footprint of how the community engages in an overall strategy that we think will be incredibly impactful to the destination. I'm going to stop here again for any questions about that sort of scope and scale of what we're talking about with the email program.
Any questions on focus areas? Seeing none, go ahead.
Okay. Keep moving on. Segmentation. We had a little bit of discussion of this when we were in person, and while we recognize that there's some incredible focus currently, this idea of using segmentation to not only talk about geography, but also to talk a little bit more specifically, again, into this repeat visitor, and recognizing that there is an opportunity that we've discussed, I think, in some detail, but begs a little bit more discussion, and that is, as the price sensitivity begins to heighten in the community, meaning the prices during peak season, there is clearly an opportunity for you to lose some of the repeat visitation, being priced out of the market. And there's two things that can happen there. That visitor can choose to go somewhere else, or could also choose to go to a different time of year, which, while may initially sound beneficial, it leaves a pretty big gap in revenue in the perspective of a year. So we think that there's an opportunity to look at in terms of demographic and house spend, but also some demographics that will come from the research being done currently by Walton County as it relates to visitors who have chosen not to come back. They're looking to increase potentially the household segmentation number that you're using, and also to increase some of the opportunities to segment within special activities that are very, very targetable, if you will, and looking at sending the right message to the right traveler at the right time, and how we can develop, continue to grow and develop the personas to help in this problem. So not just looking again at geography or household income, but really looking at some of the other opportunities we have to model segmentation and look into some key areas where we feel that Walton County has an enormous strength, and that is in family structure, and that is also in consumer attitudes towards family travel, and some other dimensions that we feel can round out these personas and allow us to even more focused segmentation to hit those really core opportunities with these personas. We also clearly, again, recognize that some of this has been done, but as we look at the opportunity for email to further help us define segmentation, because emails are a very impactful way to learn more about the current visitor and the segment, but really look at how we can bring that next level of segmentation to the organization as a holistic strategy that ties back into email campaign as well as the digital and ad campaigns that are currently being run by the organization. Stop again for a little question here as we're continuing on the overview.
Any questions? Seeing none. Go ahead.
Okay. I think as we would all sort of recognize that web continues to be a very, very important tool for marketing and defining the opportunity to visit. And this opportunity for this website design we feel is very impactful. Recognizing that there are two websites that we feel very strongly that the team that manages this very, very well and can continue to manage that moving forward and have learnings from both audiences and both of the platforms as you build the content to further define the brand and further promote the destination. There is a clear familial relationship between the two brands, and we feel that that is an opportunity to even extend more into the way that the website are designed. Opportunity is not to build, or our recommendation is not to build what we could call the yellow pages model of a website, to really continue to build off of the content strategy and the editorial focus that is so strong right now and build that even further and build that editorial content with a landscape that continues to lean into the content and messaging that we're seeing, that we're proposing in the email campaign, leverage that with segmentation, and have those focuses, those core markets be very prominent and very present in the continued editorial content development for the new web page. Clearly, the AI is a tool that we're all seeing impact our daily lives, and feel that this is a step that's been taken already very positively with the organization, with the Seymour AI integration, and feel there's even more of an opportunity as not only South Walton, but authentic Walton to drive more traffic and see better results with the website with these new very, very powerful AI-powered search opportunities that exist. The idea of, to kind of sum this sort of opportunity up as we see it, this is one where the idea and the structure of the website looks much more like a destination blog than as a yellow pages, which I referenced earlier. Recognizing that the scope and scale of content and activities is very, very important. So we think this opportunity that we've begun, noted in the surveys and as noted in some of the work we've done, can really take on a very strong presence from a content perspective with this blog idea rather than just a series of listings, which again is currently not the way the website looks. We want to continue that even going forward with this idea the idea of destination blog content and content related to strategy to really position the website and the destination in a much more forward-looking manner.
Okay.
Again, stop here if there's any questions on that.
Any questions? All right, we're all up to speed.
Okay, we'll keep on rolling then. So I think a very I think important word here, but a word that probably has more impact on strategy is the idea of collaboration. That we think that this strategy with the email campaign, the increased segmentation, and the opportunity to make the website more of this idea of a destination blog in terms of its major content focus, that this will really truly integration with the entire destination, not just within the organization. And as we take more time to offer recommendations and opportunities to, again, focus and refine the segmentation, this idea of optimizing campaign sequencing and looking at a strategy that looks at the email, the segmentation, the website as a holistic strategy, and really evolving that to align with some really, really important strategic decisions as it relates to recapturing some of the lost repeat business, encouraging increased repeat business, and finding new customers and new visitors where it's really relevant. And our opportunity here, we think, is really a close partnership within the community, and then looking at ways to strengthen the entire competitiveness of the destination and continuing this reputation of one of Florida's most vibrant and innovative tourism destinations. That was an overview of our initial assessment. I think you'll see a lot more in terms of specific tactics and recommendations on the email campaign. We'll work closely with Matt and the team to offer the recommendations on the segmentation, and then look forward to offering some really key, I guess, moments of inspiration for this idea of shifting to a really destination blog-oriented website.
Okay.
Okay. Was there anything in that additional marketing assessment that someone would anyone like to offer, if there's anything that they had a question on, or an opportunity that maybe they felt we should be considering or looking into?
Any questions? We're good.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bob.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, reading through this, I don't think there's any surprises in here. What I would be looking for is something that talks more to the experiential digital marketing, something that tells a story. Anything experiential is, more definitive, gets more usage and more sightings, as well as shared more often. But also, you talk a lot about segmentation, but you're not defining it here and telling us what you're looking for to bring somebody new in. And yeah, you talk about price, maybe part of the reason people aren't coming here. I don't hear anything about transportation, the airport, destination, location, and user-friendly attitude in the marketing, and how we can drive better results through items like that. We'll look forward to controlling down the road for long-term growth. My opinion.
Thank you, Bob. And I would add that the idea of destination blog is another way of saying experiential marketing. That's the direction we think. So very, very important. We'll make sure and add that word, because that is what we intend to convey with the destination blog, that the website does become much more in tune with that idea of expressing the opportunities to have experiences, unique experiences. In terms of the transportation, the vast majority of our research shows that it's a very, very, very strong drive market. And I think as we look at opportunities within potentially the meetings and events market, and potentially some new guests, that there may be some additional pushback against the transportation options. But I say that, our research on the Tourism Readiness Index, and while there are destinations that are easier to fly to, having the two airports, the VPS and the ECP, puts you in a fairly relatively strong position as it relates to air access.
I would say that the data would indicate that if we had more destinations within the market of Florida, meaning Orlando, Miami, and Tampa, and an international reach, would improve our destination significantly against anything that you're saying here.
Very good. We will add that to do a little bit more research on the impact of airlift.
What can we do to support that?
Well, I think as a team, we can look at in developing the website and that, do a little look more at the data of why people aren't coming, not the customer that's here. If you want to drive a new market, the reason our drive market is so strong is because they don't have options to get there any other way. And our best tourism comes from the state of Florida, in which, three of the major airlines or three of the major Florida city destinations with international travel, we don't have direct flights to. So it's just common sense to me for long-term growth and planning, you would put that at least on your marketing efforts.
Let's continue down that road if we can. I don't know if we need to put together a select committee with Bob and Matt and some others. I guess that's what I was going after, and like, how can we help you with this? Do we need to facilitate meetings?
Yeah, I think it would be great, and I think Matt has touched base on this with Parker, and I think having Parker do a little run through of the airports here would be great, and then from there, to your point, should be a group of us that get together with Parker and the people at the airport to look at how we can improve that for long-term growth.
Okay.
Just for a point of reference, I think most of you know this, but I serve on the airport board at ECP, and Parker and his team are continually evaluating flight opportunities to expand, to Bob's point, the markets that we look at and what those opportunities are. And I know that Parker's been working on some things that hopefully he'll be able to share here in the next few weeks, next couple months, regarding other route opportunities and things that would be beneficial to us.
Okay, great. Thank you for bringing that up. Scott, we're back to you.
Okay, thank you, Bob. And I think one of the concepts around the discussions we had at our last meeting was around this idea of destination development, and I think that's a core area where you will see recommendations that relate to the overall performance of the market rather than a specific marketing strategy that relate to the opportunity to grow. And part of our destination development plan is airlift and increased air service to and from both airports, and tying those back to a strategic goal of growth and relating back to marketing impact in those core areas of growth is a very important strategy that you will see in the destination development section of our recommendation.
Great. Let's slip into the reserve fund policy discussion.
Okay. On there right now. So the task ahead of us was to again codify in a document a strategy. Some of this is clearly what's happening. This is our first go at putting words to the overall policy. So again, some of this is I think in practice, and this is again putting it into a policy that will help guide and direct the future of the reserve fund. So the policy again is to establish a framework for maintaining, managing, and deploying the funds. And as I think with any impactful reserve policy, it's designed to really safeguard against disruptions and keep you relevant in times of natural disaster, economic troubles, and also allowing for funding of priority projects that again sustain and enhance the destination's appeal. So that is at the core of what our recommendations are. Some of the specific monetary and dollar amounts we've left out of this, so we had a little bit more work with Matt and the team of beach operations, but we think there's some good framework here to build off of as we evaluate further the specific dollar amount. So our proposal has three key objectives: maintaining financial stability, having the opportunity for strategic investment, and then obviously at the core of any good reserve policy for a public entity is transparency and accountability. And the idea here is to allow for management allocation to be consistent with the financial goals and principles as adopted by the various responsible parties. It is our understanding that this is the process, that the reserve funds are allocated upon recommendation by the executive director to the TDC board, and then with final approval by the Board of County Commissioners. So again, not changing the current process, just putting it down as part of the policy.
Okay.
Based on the SWOT analysis, our stakeholder engagement and time with the teams at Walton County Tourism, specifically Matt and beach operations, there are three key areas where we see the opportunity to focus future investment. this idea of beach renourishment and coastal resiliency, destination development and infrastructure, and then traffic mitigation and mobility solutions, which really relate back to the core areas that were expressed by those who responded to the resident survey. Stop here really quickly and see if there's any questions on these three areas of focus.
Any questions? Seeing none.
Continue on. Recognizing that there are two funding streams, the reserve policy now kind of defines the two opportunities for the reserves. There is clearly, as we recognize, two distinct funding, geographical funding opportunities for future reserve dollars. So in South Walton, again, the three core areas: beach, restoration and renourishment, destination development, community public assembly, and then the tourism-related products and services, and then traffic and congestion. And on the authentic Walton side, destination development is the core area where we feel the biggest opportunity lies for reserve funds that are associated with that funding source.
What's our current threshold?
We're working right. Excuse me?
What's our current threshold?
Threshold for,
The reserve balance,
so in which capacity?
like in percentage to prior fiscal year's top total operating budget?
Right. So when we were going through the budgeting process, that was something we had talked about it as a group, and I believe we had decided we were going to take, 5% off of the top of each of the operating accounts and move that into the reserve funds.
You recognize?
Yes, I agree that's what we decided for this year, but I think with the ultimate goal being we need a logical way to reserve based on factual statistical data.
Correct. And so I think that's,
Millions our current reserve balance, isn't it?
so in the beach nourishment, a little over 60 million. So all told, the reserves is 167 million. So I think, that's kind of part of where we want to go with this conversation is, looking at those areas and saying, what do we want to commit to those? What do we feel is, an appropriate amount of funding to allocate to those buckets? I think, what we also need to understand is, not only from the beach side or from the destination development side, infrastructure, but it's also the continual operations, right? Staffing and all of that to make sure we understand, what those figures are going to look like. Because I think, the number we were operating off of previously for the beach renourishment, the 60 million figure, I think that's the number that we've got to look at and get a little bit more clarity. I do believe the last time I had spoken to Brian about that, what would it cost for, wholesale, renourishment in the case of a catastrophic storm event. I think he believes that figure is closer to 90 million. So I think we need to think about that, understanding, how do we contribute to that particular bucket above and beyond annually to get us to that point?
So one question I would have is just kind of to back up to the prior slide. Are we suggesting that we currently have buckets? If we adopted this policy, are the buckets now changing from 5 to 3? I think it was 5 before.
No, ma'am.
No. Okay.
So their proposal is there are 3 primary areas of reserve fund policy that they think you should establish reserves fund. 4, your buckets are still your buckets, and how you break those down, that's still going to be budgeted. In terms of what you do with your reserves, whether you put it in 3, 5, 1, that's your decision, with one main caveat. Beach renourishment has to be called out separately. That one is the biggest of all. We can talk about a second one, but realistically, beach renourishment is the one that is statutorily mandated. We can't get around. We have to make sure it's funded and held separate, and those monies are not appropriated elsewhere when they are paired with a project as ours are. Now, should that ever change, we'll be revisiting that. I would encourage you not to change your existing buckets from a budgetary standpoint unless we do that as part of the tourism development plan update, which you'll be seeing in about 4 months, give or take, 3 to 4 months from now. If you want to change the buckets, that's the time to do it. Don't change it as part of reserve policy update.
Okay, so I guess my question would be, how do we take what we currently do? Because I mean, I think what Commissioner Drake is asking, and it kind of was my same question. If we just tested one of our buckets and said, okay, what percentage of what is our current reserve balance and what percent of the prior fiscal year's total operating expenditures is it? It would be kind of interesting to see what that math looked like. I mean, that doesn't have to be for today. I understand we're still at high level and we're drilling down as we go. But I also, when I look at this, I would almost think, at least for the purposes of this exercise as presented by JLJ, we're going to have to put our buckets together to fit them into this format. Does that make, I know not in the budget. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to say from our standard way of thinking. Anybody following what I'm saying?
I agree with what you're saying, Councilwoman. I think probably the easiest way at this level. Now, 2 meetings from now, you're gonna have a much more granular view of this, I hope. And if you do, I think it's gonna be done differently. For this level, I think it really comes to, don't consider what we did this year in terms of 5% from every bucket. Look at it as general 5% from your whole budget. And then break that 5% across those buckets in terms of the allocation.
Okay.
Because we know we have enough money allocated right now for the existing renourishment project matching funds. Because we know that money's there, while we do want to put more in just to deal with cost increases for any project, you technically do not have to put more in right now to keep up with that match. I don't think anybody wants to not do that, and I don't want anybody to perceive that I'm recommending you not do that. But from just a high-level utility standpoint, 5% off this year's budget, spread it across these categories, and that's how you could look at what your testing or for your financial viability would be. And I think that would be at the high level. Now, again, in a meeting or two, hopefully we're able to talk much more intelligently about it and actually put some things down to line items and understand what we're doing.
And that is collectively our goal. Our recommendations at this point, again, are not related to the various buckets where the monies are held. It's related to a future strategy as you look to use currently existing balances to meet, again, the idea of having priority areas for the current dollars, and then establishing thresholds that would, in a sense, give you the priority to create ongoing contributions to reserves, which, again, the percentage are what we hope to be able to recommend as we get into further cost refinement. Again, the discussion that Matt just shared with you is one that we're in right now, so that as we make the initial assessment of the current fund balance, the current reserve balance, and as it relates to our recommendations for strategic alignment with the future use of those dollars, it's really important we feel that we have a really good sense of what those dollar amounts are. And then the other part will have a very, I guess, clear recommendation, what the discussion was right now, whereas you do annually want to replenish and commit funds to the future. We think there's 3 key areas where those future investment funds come from. That's in how you deal with and present annual underspend, your investment revenue, which is significant right now, and then again, how you look at what additional surplus revenue each year you're going to contribute at what level as it relates to the ongoing fund balance tied back to the strategic opportunities for the use of those monies that are highest and best use.
Okay.
Did we have adequate time for the discussion of any other reserve policy questions?
Anyone else have a question? Ms. Edwards?
So, in terms of the reserve, and I'm thinking more so, I know that we have on here natural disaster restoration, but in terms of the additional dollars we would have to spend marketing wise, it's pretty significant. And so I know that a lot of these are for future opportunities, but where would that fall into place? I know that's something we've talked to Kelly about in team, that we would have to have some money set aside. I know from, way back in 1995 in Opal and how much money we've had even from the oil spill of trying to get people onto our beaches, and that costs a significant amount of money getting those marketing dollars. Where do you see that would fall in terms of this that's outlined?
Scott?
So in that first annual operating reserve, that would be filled by two factors. One is what happens if, again, in case of emergency break glass, if funding stops, what level of reserve balance do you want to have in the funds for ongoing operations continuing that? The other part of that is how much flexibility do you want for short-term opportunities or immediate opportunities that happen and present an opportunity. So we believe there's a way to list that and keep in reserves a certain amount of dollars for that flexibility. And we would look back at the times where those monies were needed. So oil spill, post-COVID, and our recommendation will be a certain dollar amount to have in that in emergency break glass situation that isn't just in case of a revenue shortfall, but is also there to capture and take on an opportunity that will provide immediate benefit based on a marketing opportunity or a visitor acquisition opportunity. Our perspective on that is that a reserve that ties back to a certain percentage of ongoing budget is the best way to do that, or so there could potentially be significant dollars that are currently in the fund balance that could be spent or allocated over a series of years for those opportunities, or the strategy could be to build a future reserve for that with a certain investment every year to provide that opportunity to have those funds in an account that, again, has the strategy tied back to capturing an opportunity that's just that, a very important opportunity.
I appreciate that. I know that there's, when we look at that marketing aspect, obviously it's much higher than what general operating expenses. Are you guys working, Matt, in terms of all the contracts in place? So what we would have an actual amount of what would still be due regardless of a natural disaster, or do we have clauses or understanding of what those contracts are, of what our grace period would be?
We will absolutely make sure we're looking at those and considering those, because we do have, good bit of contractual obligations, obviously with, Zender and marketing being the largest of those contractual obligations, our public relations agency, and then really the rest are more like software agreements and things of that nature. But yes, absolutely 100%.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Those are the areas where you have the sort of the ongoing operational costs, again, contracts for services for software. And then I think it's our intent to get with Matt and look at the language you have in contracts as it relates to services to see what those 90-day, 60-day, what the cancellation clauses are and what hardship clauses there may be in those contracts.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Everybody got a pretty good grasp on where we're at? Matt, you have any final remarks?
No, I would just ask, open it up to the council, as you look at this, obviously at this high level, right, are there any areas that you feel as though, have not been looked at?
Amy?
The only thing I'd say is maybe just a little bit of clarification on exactly where we are in the process. Of course, we understand that we've now done all of our public workshops and the questionnaire, and then we move from there. We're seeing what you're thinking high level on marketing. Is there another? Well, I guess I'm a little unclear. I'm on board. I understand the reserve policy, but just a little bit about where we are in the overall process.
Yeah, Scott, can you give me a quick update on those next steps there from the JLL side, please?
Absolutely. So I'll address the reserve policy first. We do have a full financial analysis that we've gone through. Matt and I did our first review of that last week. So there will be a very wholesome review from the perspective of the finance situation of the reserves. So I think that will be very clear. We wanted to kind of give today's time around the strategy behind the reserve policy and the strategy that will relate to the recommendations. Our process now, in terms of coming to the sort of near the end, is as we talked about last month. At our December meeting, we'll present our final recommendations. what we call in sense a draft recommendation. We spoke about leaving that with you for 90 days, coming back in March and having a pretty much the same kind of dynamic we had last time, where we sit down in person and really go over the plan from your perspective. And at that time, in March, we develop what you would consider an implementation plan for that, giving you some time to review things. We're available to that whole period of 3 months for questions, analysis with Matt and the team, and then coming back in March and then putting those, I think, more definitive timelines and connections back to strategy, and then turning over the plan to you in its entirety in March.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Any final comments, concerns, questions? Seeing none? All right. Mr. Sconyers moves that we rise. Show that done without objection.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Barisa.
Okay, see you. Great rest of your week.
All right. We'll see the next point. Always good to see you, sir.